Hey guys, how are you? Welcome to the first episode of me trying to be relatable to celebrity news way too late since it's published. I'm Nina Naps, and today I want to talk about sexual harassment in relation to news in the media, my personal experience, my knowledge as a law and criminology student, and my personal opinions. It's probably a bit messy, but I don't know. Yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So you can already see from the title that the main thing I want to talk about today is the recent accusation against famous pop singer Lizzo. Lizzo, whose real name is Melissa Vivian Jefferson, is an American rapper and singer. Some of her famous works include "Cause I Love You," "About Damn Time," and "Juice," which I really liked, especially the Harry Styles cover. It is notable that she's known as an advocate for body positivity, self-love, and women's empowerment. The case has been summarized by this Harper Bazaar's article, Everything to Know About Lizzo's Harassment Case. The pop singer is being accused of bullying and sexual harassment by three of her former backup dancers. The lawsuit was filed on August 1st this year in Los Angeles County Superior Court by three of Lizzo's backup dancers. Here's the case title, and tell me what you think of this. The plantees were the backup dancers: Crystal Williams as an individual, Ariana Davis as an individual, and Noel Rodriguez as an individual. Big Girl Big Touring Inc., a Delaware corporation, which is Lizzo's production company. Melissa Jefferson, PK Lizzo as an individual, and Shalene Quigley as an individual, who is Lizzo's dance team captain. 2023. Very long case, isn't it? The lawsuit file is in the description, so do check it out if you're interested. There's just so much tea on there. So the dancers accused Lizzo for, this is a minor one compared to other things she's done, but subjecting the group to an excruciating audition, which had a 12-hour rehearsal after leaving false accusations that they were drinking on the job. Plaintiff Davis was given a see-through outfit with no undergarments to finish the performance. She expresses how uncomfortable she was. And this is the one that I think was the spicy one. Coercing them into attending a group outing at the club in Amsterdam's red light district, pressuring them to touch nude performance during the show, and a series of other things which were revealed in an article published by NBC News. Former Lizzo dancers were weight shamed and pressured while at strip club, lawsuit says. And I'm gonna do a few comments on it. So, there was a performance in Amsterdam. The after party was at a strip club. Lizzo's after parties were routine and non-mandatory, but alleges that those who attended were favored by the singer and had greater job security, which I think probably often happens in the workplace. It is one of the reasons why lawsuits on sexual harassment are so difficult, because it is oftentimes somebody who's vulnerable against somebody who's so much more powerful than them. I think this scenario happens a lot when there's just such a strange power dynamic and just huge differences between the two parties, where you need to please your boss, the powerful party, in order to have an easier life at your job. It's not just not doing anything. It's not like the only thing you have to do is to be good at your job, but you have to be good at socializing. You have to be good at being a people pleaser at toxic workplace. At the club, Lizzo allegedly began inviting cast members to take turns touching the nude performance, catching dildos launched from the performance vaginas, and eating bananas from the performance vaginas, the suit says. Lizzo then turned her attention to Miss Davis and began pressuring Miss Davis to touch the breast of one of the nude women. Davis declined. According to the suit, Lizzo allegedly led to a chant calling her to do so. After Davis declined 3 more times, the chant grew louder and louder and demanding a visibly uncomfortable Miss Davis to engage with the performer. And here we see a classic case of coercing and victim blaming. It happens more frequently than people would imagine. Yes, maybe people didn't 100% force the victim to do something, but they created this environment that like indirectly makes them to be the victim, to do something that they didn't want to. And I think it definitely happens more often than we would imagine because it doesn't cost people anything. They just want to see victims being victims. It doesn't cost them anything. And they're just a lot of terrible people, and it's sick. Plantees were aghast with how little regard Lizzo showed for the bodily autonomy of her employees and those around her, especially in the presence of many people whom she employed, the suit says. And a week later, after a show in Paris, Lizzo invited her dancers to a club so they would be able to learn something or be inspired by the performance, the suit says. What Lizzo failed to mention when inviting the dancers to this performance was that it was a nude cabaret bar. The suit described the performance as artful, but the Plantees were shocked that Lizzo would conceal the nature of the event from them, robbing them of the choice not to participate. And here, the dancers were already pretty traumatized from their previous experience. They were so uncomfortable to a point that they were willing to have less job security, yet they were not informed. There was a lack of information, and that is just one of the ways that creates a toxic environment. The assumption that anyone would just be comfortable to be in a very sexual, unfriendly place is just it's really weird, man. It's really weird. They also accused Quigley for shaming staffs who do not share her Christian beliefs, including those who practice premarital sex. One of those. Meanwhile, regularly oversharing about her masturbatory habits and sexual fantasies. Come on, man, I think if you're really close with somebody, sure, but this setting, the dancers were obviously not comfortable with Quigley for her to do that. And Davis adds that after she shared with Quigley that she was a virgin, Quigley broadcast that private information in interviews and on social media without Davis' permission. This is exactly why it is so hard to be on the internet, especially when you're working with somebody who's so famous. I'm pretty lucky because I control what information I want to reveal to the internet and what I keep to myself. If I was in a pretty toxic work environment like this, I would just be so stressed and careful about like anything I say to anybody. And I think that stress definitely is not friendly to the dancers. The coercion makes it difficult to determine whether there is physical sexual harassment or not, because it is just so complicated, involving so many parties. It just has a really complicated relationship. But I think it is a classic example of verbal sexual harassment and toxic work environment, which we're going to talk about a lot more later when we talk about the definition and laws of sexual harassment. After the lawsuit has been filed, you might wonder, so what's Lizzo's response to this? So what does our big girl, our big boss has to say? Of course, she responded by not addressing the sexual harassment accusations at all. She posted her response on this Instagram post. I will read everything, but I will add my little side commentary to it. These last few days have been gut-wrenchingly difficult and overwhelmingly disappointing. My work ethic, morals, and respectfulness have been questioned. My character has been criticized. Usually I choose not to respond to false allegations, but these are as unbelievable as they sound and too outrageous to not be addressed. Great start. We can see that there's no remorse. She does not think she's wrong, and it's the okay. So the whole there is no apology. The whole post is like this, pretty self-centered. Nobody cares about the work ethic, morals. It's not it's not Lizzo in question here. It's what she has done to the dancers that made them more than uncomfortable. these sensationalized stories are coming from former employees who have already publicly admitted that they were told their behavior on tour was inappropriate and unprofessional. So here we see, so far we have not heard the phrase sexual harassment or I'm sorry at all, but we see just like some irrelevant things and victim blaming right here. Oh, I didn't do anything wrong, but the dancers were drinking. Sure, they're so inappropriate and unprofessional because they don't suck dick or eat out of vagina as you want them to. As an artist, I have always been very passionate about what I do. I take my music and my performance seriously because at the end of the day, I only want to put out the best art that represents me and my fans. With passion comes hard work and high standards. Okay, is it really high standards to not have your employees involved in sexual events or environments and making them uncomfortable? Sometimes I have to make hard decisions, but it's never my intention to make anyone feel uncomfortable or like they aren't valued as an important part of the team. Well, those sure are hard decisions. I'm not here to be looked as a victim, but I also know that I'm not the villain that people in the media have portrayed me to be these last few days. And here's the part that puzzles me the most. I'm very open with my sexuality and expressing myself, but I cannot accept or allow people to use that openness to make me out to be something I am not. There's nothing I take more seriously than the respect we deserve as women in the world, which is completely irrelevant to what we are talking about. That's not the issue. I know what it feels like to be body shamed on a daily basis and would absolutely never criticize or terminate any employee because of their weight. I'm hurt, but I would not let the good work I've done in the world be overshadowed by this. I want to thank everyone who has reached out in support to lift me up during this difficult time. And I just want to share a few comments. Fortunately, most people were pretty negative towards it. I'm very open with my sexuality by being a sexual abuser. I'm open with my sexuality is a terrible way to deny sexual assault claims. And the fact she's saying that as if it excuses literal sexual harassment sexual harassing her dancers were exposed to is such a slimy attempt to get out of this. I really like that comment. And obviously a lot of people know this. You didn't address the sexual harassment though, girl bye. And notice she never denied anything. I guess she can't deny everything because she's not addressing any of them. The dancer's response to Lizzo's response was obviously disappointment. They thought Lizzo was causing more harm than good with her response to their claims. Lizzo has failed her own brand and has let down her fans. Her denial of this reprehensible behavior only adds to our client's emotional distress. This statement from the Plantee's attorney reads, "The dismissive comments and utter lack of empathy are quite telling about her character and only serve to minimize the trauma she has caused the Plantees and other employees who have now come forward sharing their own negative experiences, while Lizzo notes it was never her intention to make anyone feel uncomfortable. That is exactly what she did to the point of demoralizing her dancers and flagrantly violating the law." I think it's really important to look at what the victim say and how they feel and able to feel connected to the law part of it, the legal philosophy part of it. So I looked a lot into this. In an interview conducted to the claimants, Lizzo's ex-backup dancers addressed her response to lawsuit. She's essentially gaslighting us. And yeah, I think that statement was pretty much gaslighting and it's just a tip of the iceberg. So they stated that she never acknowledged any of the claims directly that we have brought forward to the table. And so for it to be met with that, it just kind of solidifies the pattern that every time we bring up an issue, every time we advocate for ourselves, every time we speak up for ourselves, we are met with retaliation instead of, okay, you experienced this, Williams said. And they clearly said that what they needed wasn't just an apology, a compensation, but a change perhaps in the industry or in society in this world. Sometimes everyone sees the issue. When it's not addressed, it's very easy for perpetrators and those who support them to turn blind as if it doesn't exist. And when these topics are brought up, they tend to be normalized. Oh, everybody experiences this. And seen as an overreaction because they are not treated with respect, obviously. And those who hurt others or witness people being hurt kind of just want to run away from liabilities or just like feeling bad about themselves. And the victims often ask themselves, am I mentally okay to take this on? Because it is a lot to take on. I think for me, it's just very interesting to be open and genuine about the trauma that we experience and to be open about the hurt that she caused us. For her to respond back by essentially gaslighting us, Williams told the outlet. And that's definitely valid. It's just so hard to stand up to somebody who's way more powerful than you when you have probably little power compared to them. And if they were to lie at all, it would just kind of not make sense, because why would you sacrifice your career, potentially being victim blamed by potentially everybody, just to lie? What about the other backup dancers? They kind of responded in a post shared by the Big Girls account. It's kind of like a thank you note to Lizzo after this special tour. They praised Lizzo, lots of dancers were tagged, implying that they're all in this, and that they have written this statement together. So the comments were pretty divided. Some are on the backup dancers and Lizzo's side, and some are definitely addressing the Plenty's accusations. Curious if this was written by the boss of the dance crew, who was allegedly trying to openly convert her employees to Christianity. I obviously have no idea what all actually happened, but this seems a bit passive-aggressive and tone-deaf. I don't doubt they had the time of their lives. They're touring with Lizzo, for goodness sake. But that didn't mean these other things didn't happen. And to not even acknowledge the accusations when it's pretty clear what this statement is referring to also seems a bit weird. This is actually gross. It has forced PR statement written all over it. Lizzo did bad things to a lot of people and won't take responsibility for it. Manipulation of the current dancers and her denials just make her look even worse. She still has time to apologize and learn from this, but right now it just looks like a bad person who got caught showing their true color. This is pure PR. I'm not saying that is a lie, but why not make a video? That is actually a really valid point. Nobody, except the Plenties, except the backup dancers, have not made a video explaining this. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, here's the post. You get the idea. I'm not gonna address it. Done. To post. Not addressing the problems. Why this cringe second slide that just shows screaming fans because it's freaking Lizzo on the stage? Yeah, they seemingly had a good time, but I wonder how many videos there are where they don't seem happy. That's a pretty good point. They kind of just kept showing how happy they are, but that doesn't address the problems behind the scene. Maybe none, because nobody wants to see this part. I'm just saying this post means nothing. These dancers all know what happened. Unfortunately, things will never change when you don't speak up. I'm sure a lot of you attended the Dancers Alliance meeting that just happened. Dancers would keep getting treated like this if they don't unite. It's a shame when you don't stand up for your peers. It's wonderful if y'all truly feel this way and are having such a positive experience, and still, your positive experience does not negate the trauma that other dancers went through. Everyone's experience is their own, and they're valid in expressing themselves. Just because some dancers spoke out negatively doesn't mean you need to respond by speaking as though the team you're on did nothing wrong. Nothing says genuine statement like waiting 3 weeks for the lawyers to type something up for you to post. We all get it though. Don't want Lizzo coming for your job next. So most comments are speaking up for the Plenties. However, many of them still congratulate the other dancers, and this is where we see forms of victim blaming. Just like that, because everyone has the right to walk away from environments not suitable to their mental health. But when you choose money over your standards and then get mad when you get fired, I don't want to hear about it, and that's not victim shaming, it's called accountability. That is like that's a big victim shaming shit. Okay, so if I got bullied at school, it's my fault because I chose education. I chose my tuition fees that I paid over my mental health. so I deserve to be bullied. And because I want to earn money for my family to pay the bills, I have to be sexually harassed. It's just because I'm too fragile and have bad mental health. Be accountable for your part in the situation, because if they quit because of the treatment, I'll be 100% behind them. But now you participated in the tomfoolery and only had a problem when you got fired. I am glad the big girls and boys made this statement. I still can't believe that somebody posted this. This is exactly why the whole legal system exists, is because there are people like this. It's really easy to feel connected to it. It's very easy to imagine what if you experienced this? What if I experienced this? More comments? Yes, this is what I felt about it too. If y'all didn't like the after party, I'm sure no one forced you to do anything. Falling victim to peer pressure is real, but ultimately your decision, y'all getting fired, sounds like a personal problem. I don't think I need to say much about this because I already talked about it earlier. Peer pressure affects a person's decision, especially when perhaps they were coerced or suggested to drink in an environment where they're tense, perhaps really hard to think. In the end, it's not their decision. They make a decision. If one makes a decision to do that, they have to be actively do that without being affected by anybody. And in this case, they were affected by basically everybody. And this is definitely, again, a form of victim blaming. It's like a person getting bullied and they're like, oh yeah, it's your decision to be bullied because you stayed at the school. If you didn't report to the teacher, which in this case they filed a lawsuit. There's another one, current dancers will believe over disgruntled former dancers with an agenda. We're still waiting for the results of the lawsuit. Usually legal systems take a pretty long time to process basically any case, unless it has enough public attention. But at this point I feel like we have had plenty of cases with a lot of public attention to a point that it's just gonna take pretty long anyway. I mean, so far it's been 2 months. But now to talk about my personal experience, my personal opinions, and some legal knowledge. Hey guys, I'm back. It's another day because I'm at school. It's been a terrible day, but I got new glasses. In August, I was interviewed by a postgraduate from Newcastle University about sexual harassment, its law in the UK, and how it can be viewed from the criminological perspective. So I did a little bit of research. It's been really insightful, and that's one of the reasons that prompted me to make this video. She asked really insightful questions, like what is the legal definition of sexual harassment in the British criminal law system, how does it differ from the other sexual offenses, and are these laws clearly defined concerning the types of behaviors considered as sexual harassment. I do think we need to understand what it actually means before we start talking about it, because not everyone would define it the same way. In fact, because of different experiences, maybe everybody defines it a different way. Everybody has a threshold that they could accept. Social definitions of sexual harassment vary, probably because our education systems really taught us anything about sex at all, let alone sexual offenses and how we could define it or prevent it. Well, the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, states that sexual harassment includes unwelcomed sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature in any environment. Sexual harassment can be done by and be done to people of any gender, sexual orientation, and relationship to the victim. Examples include verbal harassment of a sexual nature, including jokes referring to sexual acts or orientation, requests for sexual favors, unwanted sexually explicit photos, emails, or text messages. So think twice about sending those dick pics. Unwanted presentation of one exposing oneself or performing sexual acts on oneself, and obviously unwanted touching or physical contact, sexual or not, which oftentimes amounts to sexual assault. The legal definition of sexual harassment in the law of England and Wales, which is what I study, is laid out in section 26(2) of the Equality Act 2010 as for right now. Sexual harassment is the unwanted conduct specifically of a sexual nature and has the purpose or effect of creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment for the complainant or violating their dignity. The Equality Act 2010 organized the existing scattered anti-discrimination laws into one single act with the purpose to help people recognize their rights and protect them from discrimination in the workplace and wider society. That sounds pretty good in picture, doesn't it? Because everybody should have their rights protected. However, prohibited conducts under the Equality Act 2010 are civil wrongs, which means that there is no criminal offense of sexual harassment in the law of England and Wales. The few exceptions include stalking, indecent exposure, upskirting, and any sexual harassment involving physical contact, which amounts to sexual assault. Otherwise, it is not a criminal offense, unlike the other ones such as sexual assault, assault by penetration, causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent, and rape in the Sexual Offences Act 2003. These are the ones that are criminal offenses. All of these offenses are different from one another. I was very surprised to find out that sexual harassment is not in the Sexual Offences Act, which explains why we learned absolutely nothing about it in my first year's course. I thought it might just be because maybe I will learn about it in my advanced module because last year was just introductory, but now I realized I probably wouldn't be able to come across it because it's in the civil wrongs part. If a victim experiences sexual harassment, what legal measures should they take to seek protection and justice? I would say, first of all, please don't swallow everything into your stomach because you definitely deserve justice, even though it is really difficult. I think if you know that you're safe, then definitely make an attempt for it without notifying the other party in such a way that they could remove evidence. So first of all, definitely try to collect evidence. Consult a legal representative, law firms, other legal services, and going to the police office. I'm not an expert at this, but I would expect that to be the process somewhere to begin with. How does the legal system handle issues of evidence protection and victim privacy in sexual harassment cases? I think this is the place that we definitely should have been taught more at school because I haven't been taught these at all, and even though this is a really insightful question. So these are kind of just my assumptions. I doubt that you can just anonymously sue somebody for the case. You don't have to really be there in court, even though it will be really helpful for you. In cases of like victim protection, victims have the choice not to see their perpetrators in court. They could be in another room, perhaps FaceTiming with the judges, or like record video statements, written statements. However, that wouldn't benefit their case because the jury would like to see people when they're in court. To make your evidence more credible, it would be best if you just be there and like expose yourself. In the rape and sexual violence court hearings I went to, we know the parties' names, the evidence, so I feel like maybe not many things will remain confidential even if you want to, and I think that's also one of the reasons why there are few reports. In many cases, in-court witness statements and cross-examinations are pretty necessary. What are the typical penalties for convictions related to sexual harassment? It's either custody or compensation. And there are a few case laws on this that you could look at, a few successful ones where the victim gets compensated for a pretty good sum. But sometimes money is not the ideal compensation. Is the legal protection against sexual harassment sufficient in the UK? Is there room for improvement? It's definitely not sufficient, and there is a lot of room for improvement. There's always the debate of whether it's better to make sexual harassment a criminal offense or not. I think making sexual harassment a criminal offense could also be quite difficult for a few reasons, because do victims really have the strength to go to a criminal trial for sexual harassment when it is already difficult for them to pull themselves to sue for discrimination at the civil court? Of course not for everybody, but I would assume a lot of people, it might be really intimidating to them, and with the lack of resources they have compared to the powerful. Again, like what I said earlier, they will have to be in a huge court, perhaps, facing judges and the jury team, exposing their trauma to so many people. That could be, again, even more traumatizing. And especially with the defense using the absolutely worst reasons to defend the perpetrator. I went to this criminological research lecture a while ago, which studies the secondary victims of sexual offenders who committed online sexual assault on minors. They were the wives of those sexual offenders, so in a way they were secondary victims because you just got to know that your partner has, one, betrayed you, and two, became a criminal. Everything is taken away from you, like digital devices to collect evidence. You don't get to see your partner or ask them about things. Suddenly you're at court. Everybody looks down on you, and a defense lawyer to defend for your partner, for example, used the reason, it's because my defendant's partner isn't good enough in satisfying them, and that's one of the reasons why they have to commit online sexual offenses to minors. That happens in modern court. This time, this still happens. So imagine what the defense lawyer would say to the victim. Do I even need to list examples of things they might say? And it's really ridiculous because it shows that the legal system still allows victim blaming women in court by legal professionals. I doubt that it will be any better for these victims of sexual harassment because defense lawyers would say whatever shit they want with no morals just to get the defendant a lesser sentence. And that's also one of the reasons why we need more women in the field to help each other, so we could just fight against this victim blaming shit and, protect each other. Well, this part is where I dump everything in. So I think sexual harassment is not treated seriously because of many reasons: lack of evidence, courage, the legal professional field, society, relationships as well. We know how complex these can be. One thing would be really interesting is to look at the rape myths. And now I want to talk a bit about my personal experience. I think so far I've been quite a lucky person. I've never had really traumatizing experiences. I think a lot of these would take place online. Questions like, are you a virgin? And comments such as, you're sexy, and then a bunch of sexual comments that make me uncomfortable. However, I do remember some acquaintances giving me heads up and advices before I went into an internship. They told me it's very common for sexual harassment to occur in the workplace. It can be very bad, people are going to victim blame and slut shame, and you can't do anything about it. And also shared some of their experiences with me. So I was really uncomfortable, and I asked the question, why would you let me go into this society to be in this toxic place then, if you knew that's what's going to happen to me? And they responded, just because the society is dangerous doesn't mean that you can just not step into it. Which is the truth, but it may be uncomfortable, and I don't like how people kind of just accepted that as the norm, and perhaps some people feel comfortable because it doesn't happen to them. By that time I didn't expect myself to make a whole video about this, but I did. I think I've already said what I wanted to say, and I really want to help people with my channel because I do have some audience finding my channel and asking me a lot of questions. I'm glad that I was able to help them, and I want to keep doing that. So yeah, bye bye.